Welcome to Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis. Guys, check it out. Yeah, it looks like an old blade. Well, not that old, but it's not what you think it is. This video is sponsored by Coach Life. Guys, the foundation of all the top junior tennis players all began with their junior coaches. Learn from the greatest players on the professional level now. The coaches of Sampras, Davenport, Fritz, Kyrgios, Golf, Iga, Pegula, Sharapova, Roddick, and more. Learn the techniques that made them great. Learn tennis-specific footwork, nutrition, psychology, strength and training. There's 22 coaches, 412 videos, and one coach added each month with 25 in-depth categories, including the serve, the forehand, the slice, strategy, drills, and more. Get 7 days free trial now. Click on the link below and start your Coach Life training now. All right, so my buddy Daniel, who is into all these rare and customized rackets, said, "Hey, I got something for you." And I'm like, okay. It's a blade team. And I was like, version 8. And I'm like, why would I want a blade team version 8? Because it's a pre-strung racket that usually goes for $129. My buddy Coach Pablo actually went through these in version, I think 6. He had it in his head that I need more power. I need an open string bed. And so we got this racket for him, and it basically starts off as like a 10-ounce racket, maybe a smidge like a 10-2, 10-1. And I basically loaded up the handle with a ton of lead just to get it heavy enough for him to swing. The premise on that was he was getting out hit by one of his players who was like 6'3" and hits a ton, just really hard and fast. And he was just kind of getting, taken back a little bit with his regular blade, 98. So he's like, well, let me juice my racket up a little bit, get a little thicker beam, get a little stiffer frame, and weigh it up just to see if I can battle it out with him. So we went through this phase for maybe a month and a half, 2 months, and he moved on to something else. But that was my only time that I remember a blade team. Because usually, like I said, these are pre-strung. They're in big box stores or on the online sites for like $129. And it's actually a good racket, but I've never heard of somebody customizing this before. When Daniel and I were corresponding, he doesn't live around here, he shipped me this. He said, this is a steam mold. And I'm like, a steam mold? Yeah, because it's a 99 square inch head. It's a 16 by 18 string pattern. It starts off light, but when you customize it, you can get it to kind of like a pro stock spec. So I said, really? And that's where this is at. So it's been to somebody who will remain nameless and has been spec'd up, okay? And he says this is, without the overgrip and the strings, he said it's the same balance as a blade 98 regular. I'm like, okay. But let's spec it up now. I was so excited. I put an overgrip on it and I strung it. 52 pounds. We'll keep it confidential, okay? 16L confidential. And let's just weigh what we have here, because Daniel said to try it out and see what a Blade Team Pro Stock / Steam would be. $318 on the weight. Okay, you got my attention. You definitely got my attention. Oh, let me back it off of there so you guys can see it. Back it off a little bit more. Okay, there we go. There we go. Whoa. It's like right around 331 there. 331 millimeters on that balance. Okay. All right, let's check the swing weight. $323. Oh, we got a good amount of swing weight there. Interesting. Okay. I like the specs. I like the weight. I like the balance. I definitely like the RA. So here's what we got, guys. 318 on the weight, 331 on the balance, 323 on that swing weight. It's a 72 still because of the mold and the way they built that racket. So it's on the firmer side. 16 by 18 on the pattern, so open string pattern. 99 on the head. So I like all those numbers for sure. I want to show you one more thing before we go out and hit with it. A lot of the Wilson rackets that are customized, like an H22, their squares are pretty open like this. If you ever look at a Blade Pro H22, there is good spacing in between. They don't really tighten it in the center as much as, let's say, Pro Staff or the new Fed. You know, they kind of keep the boxes a little more further apart by a few millimeters, just so you can generate a little more spin, a little more feel, and get a little bit higher of a launch angle. But you'll be breaking strings faster. But at least you gain that by giving up one. I mean, the guys that use the custom pros on tour, they're going to string their rackets every time anyways. Every like hour of play, maybe 2 hours max. So for them, it doesn't matter as much. I mean, for you and me, if we're breaking strings every hour, that's probably a problem, right? But super excited to try this racket. I can't believe it's a team. Let's go test it out. See you on the court. All right, so we just got off the court with what looks like to be a Blade team. But as I explained, this is not a Blade team. But let's talk about the characteristics of how it played. How did it play, Coach?
So as you guys know, I was using the Blade V8. When Harry actually took this out to the court, the first thing I said was, 1, I don't think this is a Blade, or at least the paint is different, which it is. 2, the throat beam is extremely thick. And at the same time, I was telling Harry, I was like, why does the string pattern look extremely open? And he said, why don't you take a look and count how many strings there are? 16 by 18. So not your standard Blade and not your standard Blade team as it says in the throat here. At the same time, the racket definitely has a ton of weight in it compared to a normal Blade. And I think it's favored more towards the top of the racket, so a little bit more head heavy. I definitely enjoyed the plow of the stick. 16 by 18 in a blade frame, though, unfortunately, I don't think really suits the racket too well, because I think with the open string pattern, it kind of makes the ball kind of fly a little bit, in my opinion, which is odd, because I thought the 16 by 19 was already flying as it was. The 16 by 18, considering also how spaced the holes are, I think was a little bit erratic at times. But what's also weird is that I think that we both agreed on is the racket did feel muted at the same time, which is odd. So as long as I hit the racket, or I guess hit the ball in the center of the stick, it felt pretty good. But some of the outside spots, as with most 16 by 18s I've tried in the past, if you don't hit it kind of perfectly in the center, the ball tends to kind of be a little bit unstable on me. But the swing weight was great. I mean, the racket was kind of just finishing for me. I was able to comfortably swing out on the forehand. Backhands were great. Got some solid plow through. But overall, it was pretty interesting to try a 16 by 18 in a blade. Probably not for me, but I could see some people potentially liking this if they did decide to release a 16 by 18 blade. So
there's one thing I didn't tell you about this racket. It's a 72 stiffness.
72 stiffness?
It's a stiff racket. Power.
This thing was muted for a 72, though.
I know, but it's stiff, though. I think it's just quiet that you feel. There's probably there's foam filled in there, but it's a firm racket.
Okay.
I did feel, so here's the thing. I felt the strings move a lot. I don't think I felt the racket flexing. That was the funny thing.
Yeah.
Although it was really quiet, so it was hard to tell. I felt the strings going yeet, 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 yeet. And I freshly strung it, too, at 52. Literally 12 hours ago. And I'm like, wow, why is it so soft already?
Exactly.
12 hours later. But I felt like the strings were definitely moving, and then the racket was not.
I agree. So this is an interesting play test, to say the least. I mean, for 72 stiffness, you would expect the racket to be extremely responsive, I guess, because, I mean, I switched back to the pure drive, so I was kind of getting that responsive feeling from that racket. For this one, it was just... I mean, maybe that's where the pop comes from once in a while.
Definitely.
I got some kind of erratic pop once in a while. But if you hit it perfectly in the center, it feels great. But the outside spots in the stick, a little bit tough to control at times, in my opinion.
It took us a while to get used to this. I feel like it took me a bit to get into where the sweet spot was for me. And even when I did, it was like, oh, it's there. Oh, it's there. I mean, no dampener, as you can see. You didn't play with a dampener. And we're both saying that it's muted. So... yeah, I'm sure it's foam filled in there, and I'm sure they put a mute, there's definitely something in the handle to quiet the whole damn thing down.
Yeah.
I got to put a noisier string in there then.
Or a stiffer one.
Exactly. But Daniel, thank you so much. This was such a fun play test. This is what people call pro stock. So the one thing that I see with a lot of pro stocks is that it is perfectly balanced in the squares.
Yes.
So even the H22 is similar to this. I mean, it's probably not this far apart down here, but it's definitely evenly spaced out. It's not tight in the middle, and it's not like wide on the sides. So that's what gives it the spin. That's what gives it the power, because the frame's usually on the softer side. This is an anomaly at 72. Somebody must have wanted it this way. So, all right. You wouldn't use it, but I think I would.
You did pretty well with it, so I'd say so.
I like it. I like the weight. I like the strings. I like, the pattern. It's great. Coach, thank you for doing the test.
Of course.
Where can we find you?
Guys, find me on Instagram at ModTennis, and follow my joint Instagram at KJ Tennis.
All right. If you can get one of these, get it in its stock form. It's like $100 if you could still find it, or $120. I don't know if it's going to be exactly like this, but it may look like this, all right? But it's a cheap test. Guys, thank you for watching Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis.